8 years ago, while looking up canning recipes, I discovered the word homesteading. Just like when I found Unitarian Universalism, the word just clicked all the disparate pieces of my life into one cohesive concept. But what is homesteading? A popular YouTube homesteader named Jessica Soward says that homesteading is about finding your place at home. A more formal description is that homesteading is a lifestyle of self-sufficiency characterized by subsistence agriculture, home preservation of food, and may also involve the small-scale production of textiles, clothing, and craftwork for household use or sale, as well as the use of renewable energy and restorative agriculture. That sounds like a lot. For me, homesteading is about providing for myself, my family, and my community in harmony with the natural world to the best of my abilities. You can find homesteaders just about anywhere, even in the cities. It's a lifestyle more than a location, with a lot of history. The history of homesteading is, well, problematic. Today, when people think of homesteading, they often think of doomsday preppers and anti-government conspiracy theorists. In the 60s, it was the hippies and the Back to the Land movement, which, especially in this area, had its own share of problems. Before that, it was westward expansion, a chance for anyone, in theory, regardless of means, to carve out a home and life on their own land, ignoring the fact that that land actually belonged to the indigenous people the settlers were displacing. And even before that, the original colonization of North America, with all the loaded meaning of that word, was a homesteading movement. So much of the history of this way of living is fraught with exploitation and harm. How then can it be seen as spiritual? I see it through 4 lenses. First, for me, homesteading is an act of connection. As a pagan, connection with nature is one of my core tenets. I grew up as a townie and then spent 30 years in and around a major city, so that connection to nature tended to just be on summer camping trips, winter trips to a cabin in the Poconos, and trips to the beach. On my homestead, however, I connect with nature every day. I see the changing rhythm of the sun rising and setting through the year from my work desk. I watch the trees leaf and flower and fruit and fade. I put my hands in the soil to understand what it's made of, how to make it healthier instead of forcing it to produce. On my homestead, I am grounded. You don't need to have a lot of land to have this connection. Explore your neighborhood. See where the pockets of wildness are. Look into other people's gardens. Become aware of the wildlife that lives in the area. That neighborhood is your home, and you can still be connected to it. Homesteading is an act of care. I'm responsible for this land and the life on it. It doesn't matter if it's negative 19 degrees out. I have a duty of care to the animals I've made a commitment to. So every morning, rain or shine, or whatever is this horrifying cold, I'm hauling water out to my rabbits and chickens to make sure they have what they need to not just survive, but thrive and be happy. I think carefully about any changes I make on the property so as not to do damage. I have a large wet area in the upper pasture that I would love to drain into my pond. But instead of diving in with a backhoe, I'm watching it. Is it too low? Would digging it out drain the pond instead? Can I grow anything in it as it is? There are dozens of old apple trees that I thought were dead when I first moved in. But they all burst into bloom in the spring and produced a whole host of varieties come fall. I have a responsibility to those trees and to the farmer who planted them to tread slowly, lightly, to watch, and to care. These are all elements of the concept of permaculture, which is a whole other homily. You can do this as well in your yard or community. Picking up trash is one of those foundational things we learn as kids as a way to help our community. Contribute to composting organizations, either if you know someone with a compost pile or with one of the organizations in the area that provides the service. Be aware of proposals in your area that might impact the natural world of your neighborhood and attend public meetings to speak out on them. Homesteading is an act of community. A common term thrown around in this community is self-sufficiency, but most homesteaders know that it's impossible to be completely self-sufficient. It's really hard for us to grow sugar in New York, and most homesteaders I know of are dependent on their coffee. But beyond that, we need to know our neighbors. When I was in Philly, not knowing your neighbors was a means of privacy in such a crowded environment. If something went wrong, it was easy to call for help that would be there in minutes. That's not the case where I live. Knowing your neighbors can literally be life-saving. My neighbor across the street fell from his roof this past fall, breaking his leg in multiple places and the opposite heel. He was found by another neighbor driving by who got him to help. While he was there, we brought meals to his wife to make it easier for her to spend time with him at the hospital. Another neighbor found out I like venison, so he brought me some, which I traded some of my honey for. He's now my firewood supplier, and unbeknownst to me, snuck a whole load of firewood onto my front porch the other day. A third neighbor and I bond over our cats. These are connections I was never able to cultivate in town. I grew up in a small town and was always resentful of everyone knowing everyone's business, but now I'm grateful for that connection. Again, you can do this as well. Make a commitment to introduce yourself to even just 2 of your neighbors, including giving them your contact information. My mother bakes muffins for anyone new that moves into her neighborhood. These small acts build community and strengthen us as a whole, especially in these times. And finally, I see homesteading as an act of resistance. Like so many things in the world today, food is political. While I am not fully into the mindset of corporate food is poison, I do know that so much of our food is exploitative. From the migrants in Pine Island, poisoned by fertilizers and insecticides for the onions we eat, to the locals in Peru and Bolivia who aren't allowed to eat the quinoa they grow for American shelves, to the squalid conditions meat animals are kept in, no food is untouched. I grow my own food, mostly because I love to do so, but also so that I have an abundance to share with my friends and neighbors, either through my growing farm stand or just by gifts of what's currently abundant. Every meal I can make myself helps me become more independent of the food systems which are at constant threat of breaking down. Just think how many times lettuce gets pulled off the shelves for listeria outbreaks to doubt that. I have space here for people in trouble to come to if they need a place to be safe for a short or a long time, and the abundance to help them while they're here. Living here in town, think about what resources you have to contribute. As Unitarian Universalists, we are already moved to protest injustice and strive for interconnectedness. Are there other ways you can help? We'll be discussing this more later today in the Social Justice Common Read series, so please stay for that. But one way that is front of my mind is how to make my garden help others. The Master Gardener trainees this year are developing a Grow a Row program to encourage people to plant a little extra for their local food pantry. If you're in town, how much of your yard could you turn into a garden? Gardens are a lot easier to care for than lawns, in my opinion. If you already have a garden, how much of it goes to waste? Or do you have garden space lying fallow and untended? With the current food crisis in our area, any food donated to local pantries is a blessing. You can get seeds for free next Saturday at the annual Master Gardener Seed Swap, along with all sorts of advice for gardening big or small. Another way of building community and care. All of these aspects are interconnected. My homestead is a safe space, sacred ground where I talk to the plants and make offerings to the spirits of the land and feel deeply connected to the divine. I'm working year after year to make it more independent from unreliable systems so that I can do greater good in the world. And I find peace here. You make a home, big or small. You feed yourself. You have connection to the land. You are part of a community. What are ways you can express that? There is no perfect way to homestead. I tend to emphasize gardening because that is my passion, and because my mother always had a big garden, so that feels right. But there are homesteaders who focus on construction, or animal husbandry, or on building community. Even the smallest act counts, and often one act leads to another. Ask any homesteader about chicken math and see how often it ends up with them talking about their dairy cow. I encourage you to think about your life. Where do you find yourself making a home? And how can you make that an act of care, of connection, of community, of resistance? In other words, an act of spirituality.